Welcome back, everybody. Back working on the solid axle swap today. So, next step on the Tahoverlanding solid axle swap is the track bar. So, in their kit, they send you with one solid builder's blank track bar. So we got to cut this to length and weld the bushings on the end. So we've got two bushings here. They're two different sizes. One is for the axle side and one is for the bracket that we put in on the last video up on the frame. So what we got to do here is put these, we're going to bolt both of these into their locations. I've already got this sitting on the spring, so we are at ride height. So we're going to bolt those in. We got this where we need it height wise, and then we need to center the axle left to right. So the track bar is what does that. This is going to be align it. So I'm going to use a ratchet strap to pull it and make any adjustments. So I'm going to measure from the frame out to something repeatable on both ends and get this located for sure in the center. Then I'm going to measure between these two, and that'll give us the length to cut our track bar to. Let's get going. Okay, there's the bottom one. That's the narrower one. And then the other one is right there. We'll need to measure the difference, the distance between those two. Okay, so I measured from the frame to that grease fitting right there. You can actually kind of tell just by looking at the springs here that the axle is kicked this direction. That gap's much bigger, but I also measured it from there to there, and it is this direction, 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. So got a ratchet strap tied here, and through this right here, it's up under here. We're gonna tighten this up, and that should just pull our axle straight over till we can get it centered. Okay, I'm as close as I can get it to center with the ratchet strap. I'm about 1/8 of an inch off, so I'm just going to calculate that into my measurement slightly and just make a minute adjustment there to offset that. It's close enough, but get it as close as I can. Like if I go another click on the ratchet strap, I go too far the other direction. So I'm as close as I can get it with my current ratchet strap set up. I guess I could get another one on there and fiddle with it some more, but I'm going to call it good. I'm gonna make a slight adjustment on the track bar measurement and go from there. So we need to measure from the bottom track bar mount to the top track bar mount and see what that length is. I have a love-hate relationship with these creepers. They're so annoying to stay on top of. They're always trying to roll the wrong direction, and they're almost not even worth using. But if I don't use it, I'm just laying in metal shavings and things like that. But it's so much easier to just scoot around until you need to scoot in and out. I don't know. That's my life. A lift would make this a whole lot easier, but I don't have one. All right. I'm gonna measure from bottom to top. I think that's gonna be the easier way to get this. Measuring tape in here. Okay. About 36 1/4. That measurement probably won't mean anything to you if you're doing this, because every one of these is gonna be slightly different. Getting that measurement is a pain, and I think it's fairly accurate. I don't know. This cut's slightly stressful, because if I mess it up, I gotta wait for another one of these bars to come in, which should take a little bit. But probably not very long. But I have measured like 3 times, so I'm pretty sure I can get this pretty close. Hopefully. Literally marked that 1 inch short. Measure thrice, cut 4 times. Yeah. Look at that clean cut. It is 1.25 inches. Solid. Beefy track bar. All right, looks like our length is pretty good, and I've got it kind of just sitting up in here. You can see it sitting there. I'm gonna have to hold it in place there as best I can. So with this, you gotta tack weld it to those sleeves under the vehicle where it needs to be at. I just need to tack it. If I weld it, I'll melt the bushings. I need to tack it in place so it gets exactly where it needs to be. Then I need to pull it out and go full weld it. So, see if I can get this thing tacked in place. That may be one of the most annoying things to try to tack in place. I got some ice to help me cool that down as fast as possible. I still got one of these bushings hot. It's very hard to do a tack on something like that with a cheap stick welder, and that's all I've got that is really working on this. So hopefully I can get it out without breaking those tacks, because I really don't want to have to do that again. So I'm going to try to pull it out and then pop those bushings out and full weld it. We'll see how this goes. All right, got this out, got the bushings out. At this point, I'm kind of just hoping that my tacks are still in the right spot. And if it's not, it's gonna be a pain, but I'm gonna weld it up and hope it's in the right spot. I feel like I beat and bang on this enough that it might be off, but if it is, and I'll deal with it when I try to put it back in and it doesn't line up. We'll see here shortly. Okay, I got my ends put back in. I got this thing welded up and painted. A little bit of a gamble. I don't know if it's perfect, but I'm hoping it's perfect. We're about to find out. Okay, it's getting dark, so it's hard to see, but it is in there. I really can't show it to you right now, but the track bar is in. It's looking pretty good. My only real concern with it is how high it sticks up. I don't know how close it's gonna get to the motor when it droops. It looks like it could get pretty close, but I'm not sure exactly how much travel it's gonna have. So I'll have to test out some things. I think first thing we need to do is, I might actually, well, let's just start testing things. Let's check some articulation, see if anything's binding, see if anything's getting in the way. And then I need to pull the springs out, drop it all the way down, make sure it can flex. I might not even have to do that. Just need to flex this thing around. I need to put the one bump stop back in, and then let's do some flex testing. Theoretically, the axle is bolted in place, forward, backwards, left, and right. Should be pretty well centered, I think, I hope. It almost looks a little off to me, but hopefully that's just me. Well, just experimenting here a little bit. This isn't really the safest thing to be doing, so I can't go too crazy. That's over a foot. I don't know that that's necessarily good, but my jack's out of lift. I guess I could go hit the back corner and try to lift it up too. I don't know. I may have to pull the wheels off and do a little experimenting, cycling. But track bar's in. So far, everything's looking good. I just gotta experiment, make sure things aren't hitting. With that lifted up that high, which is pretty high, it's not on the bump stop. So it's definitely got more to go. Good 3 inches just on travel up front. Plus, this probably is not drooped all the way out. So, yeah, it's still got weight on it. It's got a lot more to go. A lot of that flex is in the back. Back is not hitting anything yet. That'll tuck up in there higher too. So, I don't know. I'll do some experimenting and test and see what's fitting, if we got any issues. All right, another night. I'm doing some more test fitting. I'm just figuring things out right now. I did have to trim this off this ARB bumper because, well, as you can see, this has never lined up right. It fits correctly. It has the right kit and everything. But on these generations of Chevys, this is kind of the older and this is shorter. And then when you get to like an 03 to 06 Chevy 3/4 ton, well, all of them half ton, 3/4 ton, doesn't matter. They've got a longer fender piece here. So this bumper is long enough to fit those cat eye Chevys. So it actually sticks back a little bit. I've never bothered to do anything because it didn't rub anything. It just looked a little weird, but I've just ignored it. But I cut about 1 3/4 inches off of that. I got to do the other side here. And that will give, you can see how close it is. The tire will rub on that. So I've got to trim it back now. And then I'll probably plate the end of that back, kind of how it originally was. It won't be quite as nice. I've avoided this because I didn't want to, I can't redo the powder coating on it, so it's just going to be painted there. But I got to do it now because I need room for these 35. So that's looking good. I got to do the other side. The other thing that I'm noticing, I still got a little bit more testing to do before I start welding stuff in permanently. I do think my track bar is a hair short. I think my axle is kicked over to this side a small amount. I'm not really sure how it ended up being off because I had it at right height, centered, and welded it and tacked it in place while it was under there. Maybe it got bumped a little bit when I was fighting with it in the shop, getting the bushings out. I don't know. It's slightly off, but I can live with it. It will only slightly annoy me every time I look at the front of the vehicle, but I can always fix it. I just have to do the track bar a little bit longer. I think it's fine. It's not going to cause any issues. It's just a hair off. The other thing is these bump stops. I think I'm going to get some different bump stops. These bump stops, they're compressing a lot more than I expected under the weight. And I either need to space them down a little bit more. I need a little bit more clearance on the track bar because it is barely bumping the oil pan at full compression. Now it's doing it at full compression on both sides, which you're never going to have in a real scenario. I'm not going to fully compress the springs and the bump stops on both sides. So with one side flexed, the track bar has more room. So it's not an issue except with no springs in it. So not really a problem there. That's just super close. But I am still hitting the radius arm on the frame right back here. And that's going to do that on one side regardless. So I need to lengthen my bump stops a little bit. I'm going to get some longer, slightly heavier duty bump stops. I already ordered them. I'm going to try that because I'm just not really happy with these bump stops. They're compressing a lot under the front of with the weight of the front of the vehicle. So I want some better bump stops because if I did come down hard on that for some reason, I don't want the bump stop to immediately bottom out. I want a little bit more cushion there. So I'm going to get some better bump stops and that'll solve that problem. Other than that, that's the only things I found. So I'm going to keep testing and I'm going to jack the body up, put it on jack stands, and then I'm going to jack either side of the axle up without the springs in it. I got the springs out right now, and just cycle it all the way up on one side, all the way down on the other side, that kind of thing, so I can see all of our articulation, what's binding, if anything's hitting. And then after that, if that goes well, we'll be ready to weld this stuff up. Okay, been messing with this some more. Let me show you a couple more things. So I've got the driver's side tucked up as far as it will go. It is not on the bump stop yet. One of the reasons I've got to get the longer bump stop. It is hitting the frame right here. So definitely need to extend that bump stop. I am going to have to, if I turn it, it hits the windshield wiper reservoir there. Not surprising. I think it's got a hole in it anyway, so I will delete that. Maybe try to get a smaller one so we can have windshield wiper fluid. Those hang down. That's a pretty common issue. Even if you're not doing a solid axle swap, you're trying to run bigger tires on an IFS, you will quickly get that tire into that windshield wiper reservoir. It's clearing on the backside, zero problems. Right here, you can see I bent this just a little bit. The tire was hitting here when this side was fully tucked, and I just bent that in a little bit, and it's good now. So this side is completely clearing. This side looks like it'll clear as soon as I get the windshield wiper reservoir out of the way. And then I just need to either adjust or change my bump stops, and that will stop some of the issues. I am getting a little bit more upward travel on this side than this side. I don't know exactly why, and it doesn't really matter. It's about quarter to half an inch, somewhere in that range. So not a huge difference, not like a major issue is there. Track bar is good, but when I tuck this side all the way up to the bump stop, it does make contact with the oil pan. It's barely touching it. It's not denting it. It's just touching. So, and again, once I adjust my bump stops, that should alleviate that issue. So I'm getting approximately 10 inches to 12 inches of articulation. So what I'm doing, I've got that spring in over there to put downward pressure on that side, and no spring over here, so I'm not rotating the whole vehicle. And then I got the body on jack stands. I have, this is my measuring tape. I don't have one here, but that is approximately, I'll find a measuring tape. Let me find an actual measuring tape so I can give you an actual measurement. Okay, we'll use this right here. So we are getting approximately from the floor to the bottom of the tire about 11 inches right there. And like I said, I got slightly more on the other side, but only like maybe a half inch. So 11 to 11 and a half inches of travel. I'm gonna have to limit that a little bit more. It can probably technically droop some more. My spring is not loose, so theoretically it could droop more, but it is, I think the radius arms are binding up enough to stop that. I don't know for sure if that's what it is, but that would be my guess. So I don't know if that's good or bad. I just know that's what I've got right now. Okay, after a little more testing, I've decided I am mostly happy with everything. I'm happy with my spring bucket location. I think that's good. I'm happy with my axle location. I'm happy with my track bar. I think it is good. And what else? I'm not happy with my bump stops. I'm gonna try some different bump stops, or I'm gonna have to adjust those to make things clear. The only other thing I'm not 100% sure on is my radius arm mount locations. I think they're fine, but I think I might move one of them over about an inch. I don't know. I'm going to investigate that a little bit. Doesn't appear to be hurting anything, but I'm not sure I have them both really at the exact same angle going back to the frame, which may not entirely matter, but I'm going to look into that a little bit more. But other than that, I think I'm going to start welding, get the spring buckets welded up, get the track bar mount welded in permanently, and then see where we're going to go from there. All right, guys, a little update on where we're at. I spent last night welding. I've got the spring buckets welded in. That's sitting up there. Spring buckets welded in, track bar brackets welded in, bump stop brackets are welded in. I moved one of the radius arm brackets on the transmission brace over. to make them equidistant from the frame. And that corrected my variation in length on my radius arm. Probably should have thought about that more when I originally put it in, but I didn't. So now I moved it, I checked some stuff, it's looking good. I also got some new bump stops in. So these are significantly longer and bigger than the other ones. And that is keeping everything from hitting that I was worried about with a little bit of extra space. So even if these compress some more, I still got a little bit of room. And if they kind of break in, I should be good. So I think these are going to work. We'll see in the long run. But my next step, I am good with everything. So I'm going to permanently weld in the radius arm brackets on the transmission brace. And then I think I'm going to kind of assemble this axle permanently. I've got the shock tower from the Dodge that's going to fit up here. There's a little bracket with some bolts for that. We'll put the springs in. I've got some shocks. I just got some cheapo shocks for the front for now. I might get some better ones later, but for now I just picked these up locally because it was quick and easy. I think I'm going to weld that up, put my springs and shocks in, and we're going to be real close to having this thing in, hopefully permanently. I'm sure I'll have it back out at some point. I'll have something I got to pull it back out for, but hopefully I don't have to pull it back out again after today for a while, but we'll see. All right, guys, here's what I got done last night. Shocks are in, springs are in, axle's completely bolted in. Next step here is I'm going to put in the limit straps. These are that came in the kit from Tahoverlanding. And I'm gonna use the inner side of this bolt right here. I'm gonna bolt it in there, and then we've got these tabs that come with these weld-on tabs, and this is gonna go right up. I'm gonna weld it right up in here. And that is going to keep our axle from drooping too far. So the bump stops keep it from going up too high. Limit straps keep it from going too far. That'll keep our springs in place and keep us from bottoming out our shocks and tearing up our shocks by using them to stop our droop. So I'm gonna take a jack and just barely lift this axle up a little bit. I wanna bring it up a little bit higher in case this stretches a little bit. So I'm gonna bring it up just a little bit, and then we're gonna weld that tab in and get this going right about there. All right, got tabs welded on both sides. Wait for some paint to dry, and then we'll put the limit straps in. I'm gonna go put the drive shaft in. I had to get a different U-joint for the end of it. This came with a 1310 U-joint on both aspects, so now I got a 1310 to 1330. The yoke side of the Dana 40 is a 1330, and then this drive shaft end is a 1310, and the other end I believe is a 1310. Anyway, it should fit now, so see if I can't get that bolted in. Got the drive shaft in, so that's bolted up to our slip yoke eliminator. And then it goes up here to our axle. We are at full droop. That's how much we're opened up. We've still got some more play in that shaft. It is kind of wonky right now, but that's because it's at full droop. I did have to clearance my catalytic converter just a little bit right there to let it clear it full droop. But other than that, looks like it's fitting pretty good. We'll do some adjustment on our angles here once we get some weight back on it. All right, guys, we're moving over to some steering. So this pitman arm, this is a flat pitman arm. There's no drop or anything to it. This comes in the Tahoverlanding kit, and this is necessary to make this steering work. I put a new tie rod in here because the old one was looking kind of rough and it didn't have a nut. So I needed one anyway, so I put a new one on it. I probably ought to put all new ball joints and tie rods and U-joints in this axle, but I'm not going to right now. I'll probably do that later. But this will go on up in here, something like, oh, I got it upside down, something like so. And then we'll bolt the steering mechanism into it. I haven't really watched the videos on this part of the build. There's videos, if you're gonna do this, there's videos on how to do everything on here on Tahoverlanding's YouTube channel, which is fantastic. I tend to watch enough to get me started, and then I wing it from there, which has caused me a few problems because I didn't pay attention to all the steps properly. That's on me, not on them. And if you have questions, customer service is awesome. So just give them a call, shoot them a message, they'll get back with you. I just tend to wing it probably a little more than I should. Sometimes it works and saves me time, and sometimes it doesn't. It probably balances out in the end. But I'm gonna bolt this thing in and get this in here. I don't know what I'm gonna do adjustment wise. I need to figure out this adjust right here on length. I'm gonna try to get that approximately right. I'll have to go in and get this aligned once I get done anyway, but I'll get it as close as I can so it's kind of somewhat correct, at least as far as my steering wheel being centered and the wheels being pointed straight forward. So we'll at least try to get it somewhat close. Okay, next thing I'm going to try to do is get these brake lines in. So the Tahoverlanding kit comes with these brake line extensions. These will go from the factory brake line up here down to the new calipers. So I'm going to stick these on. I've got my brake line kind of tucked back in here, so I got to figure out, may have to do some bending and wiggling to try to get that somewhere to tie it in. The kit also comes with some hardware and stuff. I got these little weld-on tabs, so you can weld these on and give you a spot to fasten that junction at. Ideally, that would go right in here somewhere. I don't know where. I gotta figure that out. Figure out where I can put it. So I'm gonna figure that out and try to get the brakes hooked up. I also have the ABS sensor. It's right here because we get to keep ABS. Got my connector up here, so I gotta find somewhere to kind of put that so that it can move as needed and not get tangled up, pinched, stuff like that. I'm gonna figure those little things out, and then we'll go from there. Alright guys, I think I am down to the last part of the Tahoverlanding kit I need to install. Still got a lot of work to do, but I think this is the last piece. This is a bracket for the front differential actuator. So you just leave the actuator out of your transfer case in place, you bolt it to this, weld this up somewhere where it's up out of the way, and you leave it in there so you don't have any four-wheel drive check engine lights. It's not actually going to do anything, it's just going to sit there, which doesn't really matter. So I just gotta put this in, get my actuator mounted up. All right guys, I am up under the vehicle and I've got a digital angle reader here. I'm gonna check, I've been working on this a little bit, checking my angles, so I'm trying to get the pinion lined up with the drive shaft here. I'm at 7.7 there. Kind of dirty up in here. 8.2, I'll probably have to get this where I can get on the yoke a little bit better than just the housing. I'm kind of going off the top of the housing. It's not being super consistent. 7.6, 7.6. I think it's pretty close. I've been fiddling with it, adjusting where it was, trying to get that as straight as possible. So I'm gonna call it good for now, and I'll check it again later on at some point, maybe when I can get to some things a little better. Ugh. All right, it is like 11 o'clock at night. Yet again, trying to get this thing done so we can go use it. So where I'm at currently, I pulled part of the transmission brace out to paint it. Actually, interestingly enough, that jerry rigging I did on the transmission brace, I've got part of it out right now so you can't see it, but where I kind of did that dog leg to kick back, the whole point of that was to avoid the drive shaft. Turns out I didn't have to do that. The drive shaft would have cleared by about a finger's width, so about a ½ inch or so. So that was kind of for nothing, which is kind of a bummer now, because I was hoping I could just flip it completely around and it would still, the bolt holes would line up and I could take the dog leg out of it. But I tried looking at that, and I would have to, one, cut the whole bracket off and weld it back on, and two, it's just close enough that I can't quite get the bolts in there and they would actually be right at the brace. So I'll probably fix it better later on and take that dog leg out and make it a lot closer to straight, but I'll have to rebuild that whole middle section and just completely redo it to be able to make it work for a variety of reasons. But if you're doing the exact swap that I've got, you can do the transmission brace basically the way I set it up. You might have to move it forward about a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch you'd have to make the bolt holes line up, but you could do the same thing and not worry about it. It's close, but it will fit. And even if it didn't, you could slightly notch that out and create a little more space. So I'll probably do that later, but I'm not going to right now because I'm trying to get this done so we can go on a trip. So tonight I got, well, I don't know what all I got done. I got the brakes in, the brake lines in, we bled the brakes. Sarah came and helped me with that. ABS is hooked up, wheels are on it. We've got wheels and tires on it. It's on its own weight. I got the steering hooked up. I need to do some adjustment on that. It's not, I got to get it aligned and I got to make sure everything's right. I got to go through all the bolts and make sure everything's tight. Drive shaft's in. Shocks are in. Basically, it's ready to go. Other than I've still got to rebuild the rear end. So I got to do the rear differential, the rear shocks. We'll do that in another video. And I have to replace the Dodge axle has a, I think it was vacuum driven center axle disconnect on the Dodges, and I got to bypass that with this right here, which is just a manual center axle disconnect. So I'll have just like a manual button in the inside the vehicle. Basically this will be cable driven. So I need to put that on. That's the only other thing besides just buttoning everything up, put the transmission brace back in. Like basically the front end's done. And then I got some stuff to do in the back end. So yeah, that's where we're at. All right guys, I'm gonna try to get our center axle disconnect manual cable. That's what this is right here. This is a kit made for the Dodge. It'll go onto the axle. Got to change out a piece on it. So we're gonna swap this in. I'm gonna figure out how to do this. I'm not gonna show you every detail of this because you can look it up and there's also instructions that come with it. But it's a manual center axle disconnect. So I gotta drill a hole in the firewall. This will mount up on the inside, and then you just unscrew this and it adjusts the cable, and that will do the little fork for the center axle disconnect. Tahoverlanding also makes a complete kit to delete the center axle disconnect altogether if you want to do that. So I'm gonna drill some holes and I'll show you what this looks like when we get it installed. All right guys, I got it installed. So what I did is I installed it. Here's the button. It's dark in here, but the mechanism's here. It runs out of the firewall, kind of up near the pedals. Comes out. Probably have to tie this off some stuff, but it comes out right here, runs right here, then it runs down across the top of the axle, and then there it is on the axle right there. It's got an extra wiring mechanism for the Dodge truck. We don't need that, but it's just in there. And then our vent tube is on there as well. I'll find some hose and extend that breather tube way up into the engine bay somewhere, get that up nice and high. Other than that, that's the last piece. I'm not super happy with that cable kit. It's not part of the Tahoverlanding kit. It's just a part that's recommended. I found one on Amazon. It seems like it's working, but it just seems really flimsy. So, but we'll see. I can always do the center axle disconnect delete kit later if I want to. But for now, it's going how we're gonna roll. Why are the roosters crowing in the afternoon? Anyway, the solid axle swap is, I'm gonna say, done. I gotta fix the rear end. I got a few things to button up, just loose ends, put plastic back under the fenders and clean things up. Just wrap up loose ends, but functionally it is done. So I'll be working on that, getting the rear end done, but for now that's all. This video might have gotten long. I'm not really sure. I've just worked on this week, day after day after day at night, trying to get this thing done so we can go on a trip. We'll see what happens with that. I'm probably going to be working on the rear end tonight and tomorrow. And I got to fix wiring that I accidentally cut. I got to redo the wiring to my roof because I cut that out when I was welding. I've just got a bunch of loose ends to wrap up, and I got to put a differential in the rear end. So I'm gonna get to work on that. But for now, thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next adventure.